Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you how to make flats out of Bluey and her family from gumpaste. Alright, to begin making our Healer family flats, I found a nice picture of them online. I printed it out. That one was too big, so I printed a second one, and I cut them out. And as you can see, some of the shapes overlap each other, but it's no big deal. I'll show you what I did to make it work out anyway. And don't forget too that if you need any tools or supplies, check the link in the description below. It should be able to help you out. All right, I started with a nice kind of a cornflower blue color, and this is going to be for Bandit and for Bluey. So I rolled it out to the thickness of my stirring sticks that I use in order to measure thickness. And I have my little template and I'm just cutting it out. And you see how he's missing a chunk out of his belly there? I just went straight down and I'm going to cut straight over, just filling it in. I don't need to worry about, any type of special shape because their shapes are very gentle and basic. So you really can't go too wrong with them. I'm using the back of my knife to make some dents in his tail to make it a little ruffled. And that's going to be Bandit. And here comes Bluey, the same idea. I had her little cutout. I traced it out. Cut it out in the same cornflower blue, ruffled her tail, and I put little marks in her hands too, as you saw there. And now if you guys are familiar at all with my other flats where I use templates, you know that I cut these things up into like shreds. And so I took Bluey, I took the dark blue gum paste that I had, and I'm using it to make the patches that go over her eyes and her ears. And I just cut out the parts I need, trace them out, and then match them up as you see here. And I'm kind of folding over the top of the ear a little bit because it was a little bit, the part that I had cut out, the dark blue, was a little bit too big, which for me is fine because I just wrap it around and then, makes it a little more filled out, I guess. So the same thing on the other side. There's the other part of her ear and her eye patch with the dark blue. Trim it out, lay it in place. You got to make sure you leave room for her to have the little blue stripe that goes up, the light blue stripe that goes up between her eyes. And then you're good to go. I'm putting a little piece of the dark blue on the end of her tail. Folding it around carefully. Make sure you ruffle it and match your little ruffles from before, just like that. There you go. And now I'm going to use my circles here, my little circle cutters, to make a couple of circles for the patches that go on her back, or her little spots. I'm using my template to match it up, make sure it's the right size and everything, that they're not too big or too small and they're good in a good place. Just like that. There you go. Looking good so far. And also, if you're familiar with me working on several things at once, you're going to know that I'm going to jump around a lot. So even though I did all that dark blue, I realized that Bandit doesn't have dark blue. He has really dark blue. So this is a mix of black and that navy blue I was using before. And I'm going to do the same thing we just did with Bluey. I'm going to cut out his darkness, trace it out as you saw, lay it over on top of my cornflower base right there. I use a little bit of water to, make the colors stick together. And I'm just wrapping around, tucking it in. I'm using my template. You can see it doesn't quite match up, so I'm pulling it down a little bit, like that. And that's where her little cheek patch, his cheek patch goes down. I'm putting on his patches, his little spots on his back. Same idea as before, just nice thinly rolled out gum paste. Cut out the shapes you need. That was just a rectangle I wrapped around the base of his tail. Now I have a piece of white. I rolled it out and kind of made it into an oval, matching it up with an eyeball that I cut out of his head. And putting it into the proper place. Add a little black pupil to it. And be careful of these because his eyes and his pupil are not circles. They're more ovals. So make sure you got a little bit of an up and down going. Add on to the next eye right there. It's only half an eye because it's hidden behind his muzzle. So watch your placement. Make sure it goes up to that edge in a nice fine sharp line there. And when you have that in place, you have it so it's nicely spaced and everything else. Add your little pupil to that one too. And these guys are pretty easy to make. I gotta say, there's not a lot of detail going on. They're simple, not real heavily detailed. So make sure to take the time with the lines and the details that are there. Here is his muzzle. I took the cornflower blue that I had before and just added a whole bunch of white to it just to kind of mute it out and get the color that I needed. This is a little stripe of light blue that goes around his beige muzzle. He and Bluey both have that little light blue strip that goes around their muzzle. And so take the time to cut it out and match it up just like you saw me do there. When it's in place, then you can add a little water to it. But I recommend for those little fine details where you might have to adjust, you hold off until you get it in the perfect placement. This is just, what color was this? I want to say it was gold with a little bit of brown mixed in and white to kind of lighten it up. So you got kind of a, I don't know, kind of a, that color. Yes, you get a muzzle color. So I traced it, trimmed it out, and the same thing with this belly too. And you can see here, I'm sorry, I lost the footage. I thought it was recording and it wasn't. So I had done his hands and his feet there, but I'll show you on the other dog. So it's okay. It's okay. So fill in his belly. You have a blue stripe around his belly, the same thing as before. I just followed the template, cut it out, traced it out to make it match. And I didn't quite do that with the ears here. That's what these two little triangles are. They're going to be the center of his ears, and they should have been a little bit wider if you look at the template, but I cheated a little bit. So yeah, okay. Anyway, we're getting onto his nose. He's got a nice shiny black nose. I just made it into kind of a soft triangle, stuck it on there. There you go. All right. Now we're moving on to Chili and then Bingo. They are kind of a very light copper color. And so I rolled out my light copper, cut them out just like I did with Bluey and Bandit, just to have a background kind of a base to work off of. So I cut out Chili, I cut out Bingo, and I'm going to just start doing my thing with my scissors, start cutting up those templates. Now, as you may have noticed, if you're really into the show and very clever, that Chili's brown patch on her one eye and ear are on the wrong side. So I just cut off the other side of the template and just made it go down a little bit lower. So that way it'll work to cover her ear and her eye. And I'm not going to do it on the other side. I don't know why. I guess the picture I chose was just transposed or something. But whatever. It's no problem. So now I'm using this light copper color. And I just took the regular copper I was using, mixed it with a whole bunch of white to make it really light and creamy. And I made her muzzle as you saw. I made her belly and stuck it on there. I'm using two little thin pieces of the gum paste cut into little rectangles to cover her paws. I just wrap it around, as you see, and just tuck in the top part where the toes kind of come out. Remember earlier I had forgotten part of Bandit's footage, or not forgotten, but didn't make it. So I'm making up for it here. You can see I cut a little longer rectangle, out of the same color as the rest of the background, the light copper. That's going to be her arm. I did it with Bandit too. I took the creamy color there, cut kind of a circle, made kind of a light bulb shape out of it, honestly, to match it up so it's her wrist and her paw at her side. Make sure they match up nice and tight, nice straight lines. And then I'm going to put little indentations, just like before, to make the fingers in her paw there. I'm adding some of that same light kind of creamy color for the spots on her tail. There are a couple spots on her back as well. And now I'm doing her eyes. I cut her eye out, the one single one that you can see the entire thing of it. Put my white, rolled it nice and thin, cut it out, stick it in its place. Added a little brown nose. Her nose is a very dark brown. It's not black like Bandits and Bluey's. So just keep that in mind too. And also when you're going to do Bingo, her nose is also a very dark brown. I gave her two ovals of black gum paste for her pupils. She's got a couple creamy little eyebrows, and I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but my Bandit and Bluey are going to have the light blue eyebrows as well. And I'm using an edible food coloring marker to put some marks to make their toes stand out better. I put the little smile on their face. I'm just highlighting their fingers on the one paw that you can see. And I wanted to show you this part too because I messed up on the one hand on Chili there. So I took water on my paintbrush, wiped it over, used a paper towel there to sop it up, and then just draw it back on. Like, it's real easy to fix mistakes when it comes to the food coloring markers. They're pretty versatile. Now we're moving on to Bingo, and we're doing the same exact thing that we did before. So I'm going to move a little quicker because you don't need to keep seeing it over and over. Just keep cutting up your template. Cut out the muzzle, cut out the ears, watch where the patches go as far as the color over the eyes and the ears. You know, when you put the little piece on the tail, make sure you tuck in the spots to make the tail have its little ruffles that it should have. Tuck in the top of the feet so the toes come out toward the front of the body. When you're cutting out your shapes, you know, if you're missing a little part of it because it's where another character overlapped, if you use the template I did or the picture I did, just fill it in, you know, as best you can. It's going to be fine. And just really pay attention mainly to the colors and the locations of everything. Like I said before, there's not a lot of details to these guys, so pay attention to the few details that are there and make sure you try to get them right. Just do the best you can. And it'll be perfect. It'll be cute. It's a very cute little set. So she's got her belly, she's got her muzzle. I'm going to do her little arm here. I put on my rectangle of the same color as the main part of the body. It was too long, so I trimmed it off with my X-Acto knife. Put on my little paw of the lighter color there, using the back of my knife to make the indentations for the fingers. Putting on her little spots, because Bingo also has some spots on her back. She's got a little brown nose. She has her eyes. They look lovely. Adding her ears, which is the same creamy color as before. She's got her nice creamy little eyebrows. And she's pretty much almost done at this point. The last thing I'm going to do is get out my food coloring marker once again. And I'm going to give her her smile, highlight her toes and her paws. And for this case, because their eyes were pretty small, I just went ahead and colored in the pupils for her and for Bluey instead of trying to use little beads of gum paste. Turns out it was more work than it really should have been. I should have just taken the time to do it right, but I didn't. I did it that way. And when it comes to Bluey, make sure you give her her little paw that's sticking out, a nice light blue color. Highlight her little brown belly with some light blue. Watch around the muzzle. Again, cut up your template. Watch your placement of everything. Give her little black nose. Make sure she has her eyebrows nicely in place. Nice friendly smile on her face. And when you put it all together, you got Bluey and her whole healer family. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out when you do. I have a lot of other videos to check out if you want. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.